All right, so this is pretty cool because now we're going to start really getting into how to use functions in a powerful way. And we've already done some pretty cool things. I think we've seen that we can change the look and feel of HTML elements. We can change the values of the elements. Um, and now, but in addition to being able to change values, we can also get values, meaning we can read the information that's on the page. Like if somebody types something into a text field, we can see what they type in and then use that in the function to customize their experience. And first off, we want to show, before we talk about using some real programming stuff like if then statements, like if the person enters in boy in their gender box, then give them this. And if they enter in girl, then give them this. We're going to make sure we understand how to get that information. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to be using functions and talking about parameters, arguments, and variables. And before we do, let's take a look at what this is going to look like. So here's our assignment at the end. This is what we're going to do here. All right. Basic functions, but you can see that we're going to start using variables. We're going to use some of the same stuff that we talked about, document, get element by ID. We're going to create another variable that's a bunch of text plus some variables, and then we're going to create an alert box that shows that information. So what's that going to look like? Sample one is we're going to have the user type in their name, and then they're going to get a alert box that says, that's not your name, stop being silly. Can I move that over? I can't. All right, well, you see enough of it. If I need to, I'll move it over later. All right, so it takes this information that is entered into the input field, and it creates a customized version of the message. Okay, so that's sample one. That's the first thing we're going to do. Sample two is we've created two buttons, and depending on which one I click, it's going to take that button, but rather than just show it like we did over here, it's going to tell us how many characters, how many letters are in California, or how many letters are in Texas. And you can see it says the Texas button is 5 characters long. Okay? And that's really our first introduction to using methods for an object. And we talked about different data types like strings and numbers and other things. But this is where you start saying, oh, the string has some methods that we can call. Or properties, properties that we can call. So like we can find out what's the length of a string. And a number, we can find out certain things. And we're going to talk about that as we dig in a little deeper into data types. But you can also create your own properties. For instance, if I wanted to, I could put 10 facts about California up on the in a function or as a variable. And when I click California, I could return the founding date of California. So what you can do now is you can associate specific properties, which are like characteristics, or specific methods, which are like verbs, like things that a something can do. But all of that is digging into it more. We're going to be doing that in, I think, the next lesson in terms of talking more about some specific properties and methods that are associated with different data types. But here, what I want to do is show how we can take that the functions can read the information from this, from what the user does and store it. So, okay, so we have function, my function, and we'll do that one first. And let's see what we want to do. We want to read the text and of we want to read this text here, and we want to show it on the alert. So let's just first create our alert, and it says that's not your name, silly. Okay. And so what we want to do is say that when the person clicks this button, we're going to call on click, we're going to call the my function. That's something we've already done. We should be good with that. That's not your name, silly. Okay, great. But what we wanted to do was make it a little bit more customized. So first off, let's use our variable. And we're going to create a variable called sentence. Okay, remember we can do var sentence. And then we can do sentence equals. And in this case, I want it to say that's not your name, silly. So then I now have a variable that I can reference here. So rather than having to type that in, I'm going to just put in alert sentence, okay, that I just created. Sentence now equals this string of text. It is a string, and I'm going to create alert sentence. But it's going to work basically the same way. Right? All right. Now what we want to do, though, is we want to add a little spice to it. So I'm going to create another variable called first name. Actually, I used X in my sample code, so let's just do that. So I'm going to have a variable called X, and this, I'm going to have it, now, rather than just writing it in hard code like this, or just typing it out, I want it to get the variable based on what the person puts in the field. So I'm going to use my old friend, document get element by ID, right? And the ID is change text. So change text. And then I'm going to do the value, okay? Now, there are certain words that we're going to have to use, and this is where, as we go into the different elements, each one has specific things that we can get. But for input fields, we know that we're going to be able to get the value, all right? So value here, that's it, actually. So now, rather than setting the value, which we've done in the past, we're going to get the value and assign it to a variable. So X is now going to equal whatever the value is in this input field, all right? So now we haven't used it yet, so let's just change this here to see how this would work. So I have this sentence that's not your name, and then I can add, see, now outside of the quotes, because I'm going to be referencing this variable now, I can put X, all right? And then let's just say I want to put another X, and then I want to say, just put that for sake of being, okay? So now I have, words that I've created, but now I'm basically calling this variable that I've created over here, and it's going to plant it into the sentence, and then it's going to add an exclamation point at the end, and then I end it, and that's my new variable called sentence, which then will show up here. All right? So let's see if that works. See? So now what we've done is we've been able to pull a value from the field and put it right here, and then we can take this, we've created it as a variable called X, and we now put that in here to our sentence, and we mix in some real code, real words, plus something that's going to change for each user, all right? So that's the first thing we want to do, is create a function which allows the user to enter his or her name and get a customized alert message. And you can do whatever you want in terms of the alert message. The key things to remember are you're mixing a string and a variable. And in this case, you do a plus. The variable basically just means it's going to put it there, okay? You're not adding the variable in math. You're just putting it there, okay? But any spaces that you want need to be inside the string, all right? So here I created another space just to make it a little easier. And there you can see it, all right? All right, so now the next thing we want is create a function which produces an alert with the name and character length of the button pressed. All right, so what we're doing here is we're going to create a new function. We'll call it which button.